What's up, guys? This is Taking the Field with Stevie Mack, and on this episode, I gotta say, it feels like Christmas morning for us lacrosse fans because we all woke up this morning, we went to Twitter, and we found out that the PLL and the MLL have in fact merged in a move that I think none of us could have predicted that would end this 2020 year and everything that's gone on, but I love it. It seems like a lot of other lacrosse fans on social media right now are loving it too. So let's really talk about what this merger is all about and what exactly is going to go into it. So the PLL announced that they have merged with the MLL this morning, and they will be adding an eighth club in 2021 from the Boston Cannons, so they will be now called the Cannons Lacrosse Club, and there will be an expansion draft coming sometime early in 2021, probably around the same time we saw the one with the Water Dogs back in February, so probably around that same time, but there will be an expansion draft, so it'll be a whole new team, still under that name of the Cannons Lacrosse Club, and with this merger, all operations will now come under that PLL umbrella or under the PLL shield, as their logo is that shield, but it'll fall under the PLL umbrella and everything that they bring to the table in the world of pro lacrosse as far as marketing, sales, different things like that, just the product in itself that they put on the field as well. But not only have they acquired the Cannons, they have acquired the other 5 clubs as well, such as the Lizards and the Bayhawks and the Outlaws and all those teams for future expansion opportunities that they see down the line. So it's not just the Cannons, it's all the clubs really. So that's as far as what we know right now as of this morning. So now that we know what's happening, let's talk a little bit about why this is happening. And this is some stuff that me and Phil Rothermick, who's a great friend of the show, have talked about on a past episode of the podcast where we talked after the championship series about a possible merger scenario, one of those big what if episodes that we did back then. And we talked about what would go into a merger, how it would happen, what we'd like to see, and all the different aspects from both a lacrosse perspective and from a business perspective of how that would go down. And so here's why this is happening, at least from what I've heard and from sort of my take on this, is that first, I think the PLL really wanted to expand, and I don't think it's that they necessarily wanted to expand, more though that they needed to expand because they had the 7 clubs this past year, and that was fine given the championship series model that they had to work with because of COVID. But I think in the future, going back to their tour-based model, it made a lot of sense to bring in that 8th club to even it out to an even 8 teams, because if you had 7 teams, one team was always going to have to be on a bye in order to make it an even 3 games each weekend. And I think in order for you to maximize the exposure of your product and of your teams and players that you do so well to market and to promote to your fans, you had to bring in that 8th club to ensure that all of your players and all your teams were going to represent you on the field each and every weekend, so that no fan really gets left out of saying, oh, well, we just spent all this money and traveled all this way to see these games and my favorite team isn't playing. You know, the Atlas aren't playing or the Whipsnakes aren't playing or whoever the case may be. So now they don't have to worry about that because they're going to have that 8th club to sort of even things out. And the next thing is, which me and Phil talked about in that past episode, is that the MLL seemed like they had been struggling to market themselves in recent years. They didn't really know how to create their identity on social media and be able to promote themselves and the teams and the players and things like that the way that the PLL had done. And that was something that Phil talked about, was that the reason the PLL was formed was because Paul Rabel had his ideas of how to market the MLL and its players and its teams, and the MLL didn't really see eye to eye with him. They didn't really want to go along with his plan, so he just said, okay, cool, I'm just going to go ahead and go do it myself and do my own thing. And that's how, I guess, the PLL was formed. So now the MLL has the ability to continue with teams like the Cannons LC into the future underneath, as I mentioned, that PLL umbrella, and utilize that marketing and promotional things that they've done so well with a lot of those people there at the PLL, whether it's Emma Adams or Lisa Redmond or whoever, just to throw out a couple names there, but they now benefit from that. And then another thing that we talked about was, and things that I have heard, is that the MLL didn't really know where their broadcast partnership was going to come from in the future, whether it was going to be ESPN Plus like it was this past summer with their 1 week season that they had because of COVID, or wherever it was going to come from. And now they get brought into the benefit of the PLL having NBC and being on their family of networks, whether it be NBCSN, NBC, NBC Sports Gold, whatever it is. They now have that luxury of knowing where their games are going to be. And then finally, Paul Rabel mentioned in the announcement through Sportico that the PLL was really gearing up for a big third year in operation. They had a lot of big things planned, and I'm sure that this merger was one of those things. We just didn't know about it until this morning. But he said they have a lot of big things coming. They had a lot of big dreams and big plans for year 3, and now they get to, but they didn't have a lot of history behind the league, as this is their third year in operation only. So he says now we get to do those things and bring pro field lacrosse to one entity in one league. And now we're even backed by the history of something like the MLL and its players and its coaches and just everything that they've done for pro field lacrosse, and really getting the ball rolling on something like the Premier Lacrosse League. So my take on all of this is simply, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Phil and I, as I mentioned, did that entire episode a few months ago about something like this. And it's crazy to me because when we did that episode, and you can go back and check that episode out if you'd like, but when we did that episode, we kept saying, well, we can talk about this all we want. We can come up with these ideas. We can come up with these different ideas of how this would all work and what it would mean for the sport of lacrosse and pro lacrosse as well. But that's 5 years down the road. That's, 5, maybe 10 years down the road. We don't got to worry about that right now. And I don't think we really ever expected it to not come 5 years from now, but 5 months from now. That's a big, big difference. But again, I love it. I love this merger. I love the expansion possibilities with teams like the Cannons, or as I mentioned earlier, with the Outlaws or the Bayhawks or whoever. I love that, and to see what they're going to do with that in the expansion draft here in the next few months, and really just learning more about this merger as a whole. As I said, we pretty much have the basic understanding of what this merger is and what they're looking to do, but we don't really have a lot of the specifics yet, especially with that expansion draft. And that's going to be really interesting for me to watch over the next few months, is getting to know more about this as a process and really seeing sort of the roadmap laid out before us as to what this is going to look like, not just in 2021, but even far beyond that. And I think that finally, my last point here is that by bringing in more teams like this just means bringing in more players and having so much more talent to work with and to showcase within this league. And that's something that this league is very apparently big on, is promoting its teams and promoting its players and being very player driven. And now they're going to have an even bigger opportunity to do that in the future, as they have now ensured that that will be the case as the sole pro lacrosse league here in North America. And like I said, I think that this will be done through the expansion draft or the entry draft, or especially through that absolutely loaded collegiate draft that we have to look forward to next spring. But that'll do it for this episode of Taking the Field with Stevie Mack. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this post. Let me know what you guys think about the PLL and MLL merger actually happening. It's not just a rumor anymore. It's not just a what if scenario. It's actually happening right here, right now. But that'll do it for me, guys. I'll talk to you later.